And it's week 14, day 6. Today we read 1 Samuel 21 through 24, as well as Psalm 91. Well, I want you to consider as you're reading today the contrast in discernment in how Saul and David look at right and wrong or good and evil. David is on the run because Saul has become so jealous of David's popularity and probably does, in fact, realize that David has found God's favor, that he is intended to be the next king of Israel over Saul's own son, Jonathan, who, in fact, is one of David's best friends. And so Saul will not have the honor of being the beginning or first in a line of kings in a family that would then have rule, but rather it's going to shift to David upon his demise. As a result, he is actively seeking to find David and harm him, to perhaps even kill him, so that indeed Jonathan can take the throne. But there are times when David is in the wilderness that during this manhunt, Saul actually finds himself at the mercy of David. A lot of times when he does not even recognize the danger that he could be in. And yet, David always chooses to do the right thing, even when he would have the opportunity to finally get rid of the threat of Saul in his life. But instead, he offers him mercy, not something that we often see. But David knows that he needs to trust in God's timing, which is a fault that Saul has never learned from. On the other hand, Saul has no compunction about getting rid of the people who stand in the way of what he wants to do, even if it is not in God's will. And that includes the execution of some of God's priests. And those are the pieces that we see in this story. When we look at what we want in life, when we look at our goals, do we rely on God's timing, or do we want to try and rush the process? Even if it means that we have to fudge some things or make some things sort of slide under the table. Is it better to do that, or is it better to abide by God's word and rely on the fact that God's timing is best?